She wasn't supposed to cry on her first day, especially not in the middle of a billionaire's mansion with a silver tray in her trembling hands. But there she stood, frozen, wide-eyed, barely breathing, as the tray tilted, spoons rattling like tiny alarm bells. Sarah's hands shook uncontrollably. Her throat closed up. The grand living room around her blurred into a dream she couldn't afford to dream. She didn't notice the marble floors that shimmered like glass, or the gold chandelier hanging above like 1,000 miniature suns, or the subtle scent of imported perfume mixed with fresh roses, because her eyes had landed on one thing: a portrait. And it wasn't just any portrait. A tall Nigerian man, proud in crisp white agbada and a red cap, stared down from the cream-colored wall with the calm smile of someone long gone, yet never truly forgotten. His eyes, warm, knowing, impossibly familiar, reached right through the canvas and pulled something deep from Sarah's soul. Her breath caught, her vision blurred. That face, that smile, that glow. "Ma," she croaked, barely a whisper. What is my father's picture doing in your house?" Melinda Okafor, billionaire CEO, powerful, poised, untouchable, had just been speaking about staff rules. Her voice had been sharp but controlled, the voice of a woman who built an empire brick by quiet brick. But now, her mouth hung open slightly. Her gaze followed Sarah's pointing finger. Then, slowly, she turned back. "What did you say?" Melinda asked. Sarah's lips trembled. Her fingers gripped the tray, so tight her knuckles turned white. "That man," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "That's my father, Jonathan. Jonathan Okafor." The tray nearly slipped. In the hallway, someone stopped sweeping. The air changed. Even the walls seemed to lean in to listen. Melinda took one step back. Her pulse began to thrum in her ears. "Your father?" Sarah nodded, blinking rapidly. Her heart was pounding so loudly it echoed in her skull. "I didn't know he lived here. I didn't know." Her voice trailed off. Melinda's face had drained of color. Her elegant hands clenched at her sides. Her body went stiff, like a woman hearing news that should be impossible. Because it was impossible. Her Jonathan, her husband of 20 years, had died 2 years ago. A faithful, loving man. A man who had promised her a child they never had. She looked at the portrait again. And now it looked different. A second layer she hadn't seen before. Eyes that weren't just calm, they were hiding something. "Jonathan was my husband," she said slowly. "We were married for 20 years. He never had a child." Sarah shook her head, confused. "But I'm his daughter, Ma. I've always been. I have pictures, letters." Melinda turned to the senior maid, who stood frozen like a statue in the corner. "Get Dr. Tunde," she snapped. "Now, tell him to come here immediately. I want a DNA test. Today." The maid rushed off without a word. Sarah stood motionless, barely able to keep her legs under her. She hadn't come here to find her past. She'd come here for a job. That morning had begun in a hot, cramped one-room apartment at the back of a noisy Lego street. She'd woken early, whispered a prayer, and stared at the faded photo of her parents on a dusty table. Her father's smile in that photo, kind and full of secrets, had always comforted her. Now, here he was again, smiling down at her from a wall in a mansion owned by a woman she never met before today. The world had tilted. Melinda sat like stone as Dr. Tunde arrived. He took their samples with calm hands and a quiet voice. "I will hurry the results," he promised. Then he left, and time moved like honey. Hours passed. The sun climbed the sky. Neither woman spoke. They just sat, each trapped in their own whirlwind of disbelief. Then the envelope arrived. Melinda stood. Her heels tapped once on the floor, then fell still. Dr. Tunde cleared his throat. "According to the result," he said, his voice careful, "Sarah is 100% the biological daughter of Mr. Jonathan Okafor." Silence followed. Not peace, but the heavy, eerie kind. Melinda stared at Sarah. Not with anger, not even with betrayal, but with the wide, glassy stare of someone learning their life was not what they thought. Sarah pressed her hands to her mouth. Her tears spilled freely now. She wasn't lying. She wasn't mistaken. She was Jonathan's daughter. Melinda took a step forward. Her chest rose and fell, unsteady. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and pulled Sarah into a tight hug. Sarah gasped, body stiff. Then slowly, like thawing ice, she wrapped her arms around the older woman and cried. Melinda's voice broke into a whisper. I waited 20 years for a child. 20 years. I prayed and prayed. And now, here you are. I'm scared, Sarah sobbed into her shoulder. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Melinda pulled back gently and cupped her face. Her expression was soft, but her voice was steady. You don't have to be scared anymore. A pause. Then, if your father can't take care of you anymore, let me do what he should have done. Sarah blinked, breath catching in her throat. Ma, you can call me Mommy, if you want. The words knocked something loose inside Sarah. She felt it, a crack in the hard shell she'd built around her heart. A shell made of years alone, of hunger, of sleeping on a mattress that barely deserved the name. And for the first time in years, she let it break. Mommy, she whispered. Melinda pulled her back into the hug. Tight, warm, healing. The guards looked away. Staff wiped their eyes. The house, once cold and grand, felt different now. It felt human. But moments like this are never the end. They're the beginning. Because that evening, as Sarah settled into the soft sheets of a guest room, not the maid's quarters, Melinda sat in the living room, staring up at the portrait again. Her husband's face stared back, and she whispered, Why didn't you tell me? But she wasn't speaking to the air. She was speaking to a ghost. And just then, her phone buzzed. Melinda picked it up. A message glowed on the screen. We need to talk. It's about Mr. Jonathan's hidden accounts. Urgent. Her hand began to tremble. From down the hallway, Sarah's quiet voice echoed faintly. Mommy, Melinda swallowed hard. We have a problem, she said. And that was how the storm began. Sarah opened the door slowly, expecting the senior maid or maybe a mistake. But it was Melinda. She stood barefoot, wrapped in a silk night robe, her eyes calm, her posture tired, but not defeated. There was something different about her, something softer. Good morning, Melinda said quietly. Sarah bowed slightly. Good morning, Ma. Melinda exhaled a slow breath. Not Ma, she said. You can call me Mommy, if it feels right. Sarah blinked. Her throat tightened. That word, Mommy, felt too big to speak. But it came anyway. Fragile. Real. Mommy. Melinda smiled faintly and stepped forward, pulling her into a quiet hug. Sarah didn't move at first. But then she sank into it, clinging tightly, breathing into Melinda's shoulder like she was afraid to let go. For the first time in years, she felt like a child again. Held. Safe. Wanted. But the moment shattered when Melinda's phone buzzed. She pulled away and checked the screen. Her face changed. Sarah, she said carefully, we have a problem. Sarah's heart began to race. What kind of problem? Melinda turned the phone around. A message glowed on the screen. Madam Melinda, we need to talk urgently about Mr. Jonathan's hidden accounts. Some things have been discovered. Please call immediately. Barrister Osak. Sarah read it twice. The words felt heavy. Hidden accounts? She whispered. What does that mean? Melinda's jaw tightened. It means your father may have kept even more from us than we thought. They drove in silence. Melinda behind the wheel, focused, quiet. Sarah beside her, hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes flicking across the busy streets of Lagos. The city buzzed with its usual noise, cars honking, traders shouting. But inside the car, it felt like they were sealed in a quiet capsule of dread. Are you okay? Sarah finally asked. Melinda didn't look at her. No, she said honestly, but I will be. They arrived at a glass-fronted building in Victoria Island, tall and shining under the morning sun. Sarah had never been anywhere like it. Inside, everything smelled of money and formality, clean marble, polished wood, silence. In a private conference room, a man stood as they entered. Madam Melinda. Miss Sarah, he greeted, bowing slightly. I'm Barrister Osak. They sat across from him at a wide table covered in neatly stacked papers and sealed envelopes. Mr. Jonathan Okafor had a series of private accounts, the lawyer began. One of them was tied to regular monthly payments, directed to a woman named Grace Okafor. Sarah's heart stopped for a second. That's my mother, she said. The lawyer nodded. We've confirmed it. Rent support, medical expenses, school fees. He sent money every month. He slid a photograph across the table. Sarah reached out with shaking fingers. It was her mother, Grace, holding a baby wrapped in a soft blanket. Her. It was her. Her mother looked happy. Protected. Not forgotten. Tears stung Sarah's eyes. He did care, she whispered. He didn't abandon us. Melinda reached over, her hand closing gently over Sarah's. But Osak wasn't finished. There's more, he said. 2 months before his death, Jonathan wrote a letter. Sealed. Never mailed. We found it during a private audit. He slid a small envelope forward. Sarah stared at it. Her name was on the front, in her father's handwriting. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside, a single page. Neat. Familiar loops in the script. Her father's voice returned to her, clear as memory. My dear daughter Sarah, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me. You were never a mistake. I loved you from the moment I knew you existed. But I kept you hidden to protect you. There are people who would never accept you as my child. I feared for your safety. Forgive me for leaving you. Forgive the silence. Forgive the pain my truth will cause Melinda. She's a good woman. If destiny brings you to her, be kind. She longed for a child. She deserved honesty. You were born for greatness, my little doctor. Daddy. Sarah broke. Tears poured freely as she hunched over the page, her hands shaking. Melinda got up and knelt beside her, gently wrapping her arms around Sarah's shoulders. He loved you, she whispered. He really did. And so do I. They sat like that, mother and daughter by fate, not blood, both crying over a letter written by a man who left too many things unsaid. But the storm wasn't over. There's something else, Barrister Osak said quietly. Something more dangerous. Melinda straightened. Dangerous how? He opened another folder. His face was grim. Before his death, your husband was investigating a man named Chief Gabatamasi. He's powerful, dangerous. Your husband had found evidence of illegal activity, money laundering, trafficking, corruption. He planned to go public. Sarah's breath caught. Did my father try to expose him? He was gathering documents. But Gabatamasi discovered it. He made a threat. If Jonathan ever went public, he'd make everyone close to him suffer. Everyone, he repeated, looking directly at Sarah. Melinda sat back, her face pale. So he hid Sarah to keep her safe. Osak nodded. Yes, but now she's not hidden anymore. Her name's been seen. And this morning, he held out his phone. Tell Sarah she cannot hide forever. We know who she is now. Sarah gasped. No, Melinda said, shaking her head. That's impossible. Only a few people know she exists. Someone's watching, the lawyer said. Or something leaked. Back at the mansion, the mood was tense. Guards were posted at every door. The staff were warned. No names, no gossip, complete silence. That night, Sarah sat curled on her bed, hugging her knees. Melinda knocked, stepped in, and placed a tray on the table. Jollof rice, chicken, and juice. You need to eat, she said gently. Sarah looked up. I'm scared. Melinda sat beside her. So am I. But love is stronger than fear. And I will protect you, no matter what. Later, sometime after midnight, Sarah awoke with a jolt. A sound. Soft. Deliberate. Click. Another. Tap. Then, a whisper. Sarah. Her whole body went cold. She crawled back on the bed, hands shaking, barely breathing. We know who you are now. She snatched her phone. Mommy, she whispered. Please, someone's at my window. Melinda arrived within seconds, 2 guards behind her. One rushed to the window, pulled it open. I saw someone, he shouted. He jumped the fence. Sarah clung to Melinda. They found me, she cried. It's them. Melinda looked at her with fierce eyes. Then we leave. Tonight. Some nights whisper. This one screamed. It began with a bang, deep, resonant, like metal hitting marble with brutal intent. At first, Sarah thought it was a dream, like the one she had when she was younger, when the ceiling fan hummed low and the world felt unreal. But this was real. She heard the second crash before she processed the sound. Closer, harder, followed by a scream that cut off mid-sentence. Not an ordinary scream. a scream that carried fear, shock, and something darker. Melinda dropped the teacup she had been holding. The teacup Sarah had almost dropped herself just hours earlier, the one that had been filled with morning tea and polite introductions. That teacup was gone now, shattered on the marble floor. "Run," Melinda said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command shaped by survival instinct and sheer terror. Sarah didn't move at first. Her eyes were wide. Her breath was stuck halfway. The mansion, the place that had just hours ago seemed like a dream of possibility, was now a trap. "Run," Melinda repeated, this time gripping Sarah's wrist, pulling her toward the hallway. Footsteps thundered from below them. Another crash echoed. Closer. "They're in the house," Sarah whispered as they sprinted past expensive mirrors and polished floors. Her voice was thin, tight with fear. "Yes," Melinda said, not turning back. And we're not waiting to see why. They ran down the long corridor leading to the servants' wing. Every step sounded like an alarm in the silent panic of the mansion. Somewhere behind them someone was calling names, urgent, angry, impatient. At the end of the hall, Melinda yanked aside a heavy curtain. Behind it was a narrow wooden door that most staff rarely used. She pushed it open, and a servant staircase spiraled down into darkness. "In here," she hissed. They plunged down the steps, two figures in flight. The walls pressed close. Every creak under their feet sounded too loud, and the air was dense with fear and cold dust. Voices echoed again from above. Not just voices, commands, urgent and threatening. "She's here. Upstairs. Second floor." Somewhere behind them, a glass shivered. A chill crawled up Sarah's spine. They reached the bottom and burst into the kitchen, a room of ordered chaos. Chairs were tipped over, pots and pans lay scattered, a drawer hung open, and a shattered plate had left ceramic shards near the broken window. "They've been here," Sarah said, stepping over debris. Her breath was fast and shallow. "They have," Melinda replied, scanning for exits. "But that doesn't mean they found us." Sarah swallowed hard and edged toward the back door. Melinda followed, confirming the lock wasn't latched. Outside, the night air hit them like a slap. Cold, unforgiving, alive. The garden was empty. Too quiet. The guards who normally patrolled here had vanished, like shadows fleeing the sun. "They're waiting," Melinda said. Her voice was low but determined, like a blade against fear. They ran across the lawn, wet grass dampening their shoes. Every rustle in the trees, every distant sound felt like danger closing in. But there was one beacon of hope. The SUV parked near the garage, black and silent under the security lights. The vehicle that once promised safety now stood like their only chance of survival. Melinda hit the remote. Beep, beep. The headlights blinked once. Just then, a voice emerged from the darkness. "You're too late, Melinda." The words were calm, soft, but they landed like a blow. They froze. From the shadowed edge of the garden walked a man, tall, shoulders broad, moving with a slow, quiet menace. His clothes were dark. His presence was like cold water on dry flame. Sarah didn't recognize the face, but she knew him instantly. Chief Gabatamasi. The name had haunted every lawyer's cautious sentence, every whispered warning. The enemy her father feared. The man she had never met, until now. Melinda stepped in front of Sarah. "You don't belong here," she said. Gabatamasi smiled. Not warm, not kind, a smile that felt sharp, predatory. "Oh, but I do," he said. "Your husband thought he could hide her, thought he could protect her. But secrets always have a price." He gestured, and two figures emerged behind him, masked, silent, armed. The air around them felt heavier, more dangerous. Sarah's breath hitched. "What do you want?" she whispered. Gabatamasi's gaze drifted over her, slow and unreadable. "I want what's mine," he said. "Your father stole from me, lied to me, and now his legacy, his daughter, belongs to me." Sarah's stomach twisted. "He's dead," she said. "You can't take me." "Oh, I can," he replied, calm as night. "But I don't want a body. I want control. I want leverage." One of the masked men stepped forward, weapon drawn. Melinda's stance shifted, protective, fierce. Melinda's voice was low. "You will not touch her." Gabadamasi tilted his head. You think this is a negotiation? A hand moved. That masked man lunged. Run! Melinda screamed. She shoved Sarah with a strength born of pure survival. Sarah bolted. Her heart felt too loud. Her legs pumped faster than she thought possible. The world narrowed to one thing: escape. Behind her, chaos. Shouts. Crashes. Footsteps closing in. She reached the gate, too tall, too high locked. Her fingers flew across the keypad. Nothing worked. Come on, she begged the machine. Her breath turned ragged. Footsteps pounded closer. She turned. A masked man was less than 10 feet away. Her body froze. Then, a crack. A gunshot flipped through the night. The masked man fell. Sarah screamed, trembling. She fell to her knees. Melinda stood a few yards away, pistol in hand, robe torn, eyes wild, breathing hard, alive. I told you, Melinda yelled through the chaos. I will not let them take you. Sarah looked up. Fear and relief tangled. Melinda punched a code on the side gate panel. One click, then another. The smaller pedestrian gate opened. Sarah didn't wait. She ran through it into the dark street. Melinda followed. The taxi appeared like an answer born of desperation. Melinda waved her arms. The taxi skidded to a stop. Hospital, she shouted. Anywhere safe. They jumped inside. The driver didn't ask, just drove. In the rearview mirror, Sarah saw lights flicker behind them, shadows emerging from the mansion. But the car was already moving. Faster. Inside the clinic, the world felt quiet. Too quiet. Sarah sat wrapped in a blanket, her knees drawn tight. Her fingers still trembled. Melinda stood by the reception desk, gaze sharp, every sense alert. They knew when to come, Sarah whispered. They knew exactly when we'd be here. They were prepared, Melinda said. Not random. Sarah looked up. So someone told them? That's one possibility, Melinda said slowly. Or someone has been watching us. A silence settled. Then Melinda's phone buzzed. She checked it. Her face, already worn by a night of terror, went even paler. Sarah saw it in her eyes before the words. Mommy, what is it? She asked. Melinda turned the screen toward her. The message read, You can run, but you cannot hide her forever. She belongs to me, and I always collect what's mine. A cold dread settled in Sarah's chest. Melinda folded her phone. We are not going back there, she said. Then where? Sarah's voice was a whisper, half hope, half fear. Melinda looked at her with all the strength she had left. We disappear, she said. Tonight. No addresses. No phones. No connections. We vanish. Sarah's heart raced. Her world had shrunk and shattered this night, but somehow, in that moment, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. And outside, the sky was still dark, but in that darkness, something else was growing. A journey that neither of them knew would ever truly end. It had been 5 days since they vanished. 5 days since Sarah and Melinda left behind everything. The mansion, the guards, the luxury, the life they once called real. 5 days since they disappeared into a silence, so deep it swallowed their names. Now they lived in an apartment the size of Melinda's former closet. Cracked walls, humming fluorescent lights, a second-hand fridge that wheezed like it had asthma. But here, they were safe. At least, they hoped they were. Melinda's natural grace had been replaced with caution. She wore plain clothes, tied her hair back, and rarely left the flat. Sarah had memorized 3 escape routes and slept with a kitchen knife under her pillow. Still, neither of them complained. Because they were alive. Because they were together. Because danger had a name, Chief Gabadamasi, and he wasn't finished. One night, as rain tapped quietly against the windows, Sarah sat cross-legged on the worn-out couch, reading her father's letter again. She had read it every night since the attack. Every word felt heavier now. Every sentence was a thread that pulled her back to a man she loved and barely knew. Melinda was at the window, watching the street from behind a curtain slit. She hadn't slept much since that night. He's still out there, Melinda said, not turning around. Sarah nodded. I know. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in the box with the only photo she had of her parents. Her voice was soft. Do you think he'll find us again? Melinda hesitated. If he does, we'll be ready. It was a lie. Not because Melinda didn't mean it, but because she was tired of pretending she was stronger than she felt. That night, Sarah dreamed of fire, of the mansion burning, of shadows chasing her, of her father standing at the edge of a cliff, looking away from her. When she woke up, it was still dark. But Melinda wasn't in the apartment. Her bed was empty. The door was unlocked. Sarah's chest tightened. She grabbed her phone. No messages. Then it rang. Unknown number. Her heart almost stopped. She picked up. Hello. A pause. Then a whisper. Sarah. It's me. Mommy. Where are you? She asked sharply. I had to meet someone, Melinda said. I needed information. Are you crazy? We're in hiding. I know, Melinda replied. But I think I found someone who can help us disappear for good. Sarah was silent, but her mind screamed. Come back, she said quietly. Please. I don't care about new names or fake passports. I just want you safe. Melinda paused. I'll be back in 10 minutes. She didn't return in 10. She didn't return in 30. Sarah paced the floor, hands shaking. Then her phone rang again. This time, no voice. Just a distorted video message. She opened it. The screen flickered, blurry, grainy, then focused. Melinda, tied to a chair, a gag in her mouth, tears in her eyes. A man's voice spoke from off-camera. Smooth, cruel. You think you can hide from the past, little girl? Sarah dropped the phone. Her knees hit the floor. The screen kept playing. You have 12 hours, the voice continued. Come alone, or she dies. Then, static, darkness, silence. Sarah stared at the screen, her entire body shaking. Her worst fear, the one she tried to keep buried beneath hope, had come alive. He had found them. Melinda was in his hands. And now she had a choice. Run again, or fight. She picked up the phone, opened her father's old letter again. Stay strong, my little doctor. She blinked away the tears, then stood. She changed into jeans and a hoodie, tied her hair tightly, grabbed what little cash they had, and left the apartment without locking the door. The place she was told to come was in a part of Lagos she had only ever heard about. Abandoned warehouses, no street lights, the smell of salt water and old blood. The city here was different. Even the air felt dangerous. Sarah clutched the pepper spray in her pocket like a weapon made of hope. She reached the building, tall, broken, forgotten by the world. But someone hadn't forgotten it. He was waiting. Chief Gabatamasi stood by the open gate. Alone. No guards. No masks. Just him. And a cruel, patient smile. You came, he said. How sweet. Where is she? Sarah asked, her voice steadier than she expected. He tilted his head. You really are your father's daughter. Where is she? He laughed softly. Inside. Still alive. But that depends on you. She stared at him. What do you want? He stepped closer. Your future. She didn't answer. I want you to work for me, he said. Medical research. Special projects. Quiet, clean. In return, your mother walks free. Sarah's heart dropped. You want me to be your prisoner? He smiled. No. My asset. She looked past him toward the dark interior. Why me, she asked. Because your father was brilliant, he said. And you are brighter. She took a step forward. And if I say no? He shrugged. Then I send her back in pieces. Sarah felt bile rise in her throat. Her hands clenched. You know what he told me before he died? Gabatamasi said. He begged. Sarah didn't move. He said, please, my daughter, don't hurt her. Pathetic. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. A tiny, sharp smile. You're wrong about him, she said. And about me. His smile faded slightly. Sarah pulled out her phone, clicked a button, and the warehouse lights exploded on. Dozens of figures moved from the shadows. Police. Special forces. Guns raised. Drop your weapon, someone shouted. Sarah stepped back. Chief Gabatamasi's face twisted in rage. I never came alone, Sarah said softly. He reached for his gun. Too late. 2 shots rang out. He dropped to his knees, then to the floor. Melinda's scream echoed from inside. Sarah ran past the officers. She found her, bruised, bloodied, but alive. She dropped to her knees. Mommy, she whispered. Melinda opened her eyes. You came. Sarah sobbed. Of course I came. Behind them, Gabatamasi was dragged out in chains. And for the first time in months, Sarah felt free. Sarah didn't feel relief at first. She felt exhaustion. When the dust settled, when bullets stopped echoing and sirens faded into the aftermath, there was only a hollow in her chest where the fear lived. She was safe. Police had confirmed it. Melinda was in her arms and alive. Gabatamasi was behind steel bars, but the storms that had almost taken her still clung to her bones. For the first time since the night of the attack, Sarah stood outside the broken warehouse, the morning sun washing over her like a promise. She blinked against the light. Birds called in the distance, a sound she hadn't realized she missed. Melinda stood beside her, bandaged and quiet, eyes tracing the skyline of Lagos beyond the police tape and flashing lights. No one ever told me freedom would feel like this, Sarah said softly, letting the words break like fragile glass between them. Melinda didn't turn, but her voice was close enough to touch. Freedom doesn't just happen. You make it. Sarah swallowed. That simple sentence carried the weight of everything they'd lived through: abandonment, terror, loss, terror again, and still had room to grow. The trial had been long, public, explosive. Chief Gabatamasi's crimes were laid bare: corruption, violence, secret deals, intimidation of anyone who stood in his way. A whole empire of fear had collapsed under the weight of its own lies. And the world watched as the man who had haunted Sarah's nightmares was led away in chains. But the legal victory wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Because healing, real healing, didn't follow courtroom timelines. It wasn't neat. It didn't respect seasons or calendars. Sarah found that out the moment she stepped inside the small apartment they'd been hiding in, a place that now felt like a tunnel leading out of darkness rather than a prison. Melinda flicked on the light. "We should clean up," she said, the words hanging in the air like a cautious reconciliation with normal life. Sarah didn't respond right away. Instead, she lifted her father's letter gently from the top shelf of the box where she kept all memories of her past life. The picture of her parents, the tiny bracelet her mother gave her when she was a child, the notes from her father's handwriting she'd kept in their old apartment. Her fingers brushed the paper. "Stay strong, my little doctor." The words were older now than the moment he wrote them, but they still anchored her. She folded the letter and tucked it into her pocket. Then she exhaled, and finally she spoke. "We should," she said. Days passed. They cleaned. They organized. They made lists of things they needed to do: medical checkups, therapy appointments, new IDs, a modest bank account for Sarah, and a real bed that didn't squeak in the night. It was the kind of work no one warned you about. The work of living after terror. But they did it together. One morning, Melinda brought 2 cups of coffee into the small living room and placed one in front of Sarah, who was sorting through old textbooks, her medical notes from before everything changed. "Are you sure you want to go back?" Melinda asked as she sat down. Her eyes were soft, tired, but grounded. Sarah didn't look up. "Of course," she said. "I want to finish medical school. I want to be a doctor for real. Not just paper and exams. People, lives, real problems." Melinda nodded. "Then you will. But," Sarah added, "I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want to help people like me." Melinda's expression changed. Not to worry, not to caution, but to pride. "You already do," she said. Sarah finally met her gaze and didn't look away. Months passed. The world kept turning. Lagos had its noise, its money, its chaos. But it also had hospitals, schools, streets full of life. Sarah returned to her studies. She worked part-time at a clinic in a quiet neighborhood, treating patients with gentle hands and a mind sharpened by fear and resilience. She swallowed her pride when it came to help. Not everyone understood what happened to her. Not everyone knew her name. Not everyone knew her story. Some people saw her as a success. Others saw her as an outsider. But she kept healing people anyway, one scar at a time. And Melinda? Melinda took a step back from her company for a while. She reorganized her life. She focused on advocacy, funding research, programs for survivors, legal support for victims of violence and corruption. She became a quiet force behind the scenes, the kind that doesn't seek applause but moves mountains just the same. And every night, After the clinic closed and the sun slipped behind the city's tall buildings, Sarah would walk home through crowded streets filled with laughter and life and small, everyday miracles, and she felt her heart beat steady again. One evening, she walked into their small living room and found Melinda sitting on the couch with 2 mugs of tea. "Long day?" Melinda asked. "The longest," Sarah said. They sat together. No fear, no instructions, no warnings, just peace, the kind that comes after storms. The letter from her father still lived in Sarah's pocket. Sometimes she took it out and read it when the nights were too quiet, and sometimes she forgot it was there until she felt its edges against her leg. And every time she read it, she didn't feel pain anymore. She felt grounded. She felt loved. She felt ready. Because the girl who once ran from shadows had learned to walk in the sun. And when she looked at Melinda, she saw not just the woman who saved her life, not just the woman who became her mother, but someone who had given her a second chance for a future that wasn't written in fear. That night, as the lights of their apartment blinked on one floor and then another in the city beyond, Sarah closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Finally, and the world, in all its unpredictable noise, didn't feel hostile anymore. It felt alive.